We will be looking at the packet titled Second 6 Weeks Test Number 2. This will be a review for the test that you will be taking on Friday. Number 1, I think that it's pretty straightforward. You should have no difficulty with it. Number 2. First, I get to the question sentence. What is the dependent quantity in the relationship? Well, hopefully you remember that we have the x and the y, the input and the output. Well, the x is the independent and y is the dependent. We say that y depends on x, right? In our relationship here, we don't use x and y. You see c is the input variable and f of c is the output. Alright, so in this case, x is c, and the y, we use f of c. That's our function notation. When we use the function notation, whatever the input variable is will be listed parenthetically in this relationship. So we're looking for the dependent quantity. Dependent is the output. In this case, it's f of c. We just need to identify what this represents. It says to convert between Fahrenheit and Celsius. Well, this formula, this function, is going to convert between Fahrenheit and Celsius. C will be the Celsius temperature that we input. F of C will be the Fahrenheit temperature. So this quantity here, the dependent, represents the Fahrenheit. So we could say that the Fahrenheit temperature depends on the Celsius temperature. Inputting the Celsius will output the Fahrenheit. Number 2, the correct answer is A. When I'm looking at an equation, I think inside and outside. The independent variable is inside. The dependent variable is outside. That is after we've already solved for one of the variables. Inside over here with the other terms, outside by itself is the dependent. Okay. Number 3, which of the following does not represent a function? We're looking for not a function. Well, hopefully you remember that in a function we have no confused x's. Each x goes to only one y. And you can see in A here, -1 is repeated. -1 pairs with 5 and -1 pairs with -2. And the rest of them, there is not a repeated x. So A here is not a function. All right. Problem number 4. I'm going to leave this one for you. It's much like problem number 2. In this case, we're looking for the independent quantity, the input. See if you can figure out what number 4 is. Number 5. Which mapping best represents the function f of x equals -x plus 4? When the domain is this, well, domain is the x, so let us make a table. X, the input, f of x, the output. They're giving us these x's, -1, 1, 2, and 3. Well, this will be a nice one to employ our calculator. I'm going to go to the scratch pad and input these x values. So, negative, open parentheses, substituting -1, close parentheses, plus 4. A negative -1's a positive 1, so -1, -1 plus 4 should be 5. And it is. Record 5 here. Negative 1 pairs with 5. Alright, so now I can simply scroll back up, hit enter, replacing negative 1 with positive 1. I expect this to go down because we have a negative slope. When you have a negative slope, as x increases, y should decrease. 3. 1 pairs with 3. Hopefully you also see the slope here is negative 1. So each increase of 1 should be accompanied by a decrease. Each x increase of 1 should be accompanied by an f of x decrease of 1. Returning the previous line, changing 1 to 2. This should map with 2. And it does. Likewise, 3 will map with 1. Alright, so we're looking for the mapping that has negative 1 to 5, 1 to 3, 2 to 2, and 3 to 1. That appears to be C. Number 5 is C. Number 6. Which equation would represent Larry's earnings E? Again, here E is our dependent, H and T are our independent variables. Larry works at a local car wash. He earns $6.50 per hour and earns 25% of the tips that are earned by the people working his shift. Alright, so we know we need $6.50 per hour. We need 650 times H. Everybody but C shows that. We can eliminate C. We need 25% of his tips. Well, it's going to be necessary to convert this 25% to a decimal by moving it 2 places to the left. 25% is 0.25. So now we want one that says 0.25 times the tips T. Not A, not B. D is the best answer here. $6.50 per hour plus 25% of the tips. Alright, we are going to omit number 7. We are likewise going to omit number 8. And omit number 9. Okay. Problem number 10. What is the range of the function when the domain is negative 3, negative 2, negative 1? Well, we know range is y, or in this case, the f of x. So, again, x and f of x. They're giving us these domain elements, negative 3, negative 2, and negative 1. We want to find the associated range elements. I'm going to show the first one out by hand. We have our function, f of x is equal to negative 2x minus 4. We want to substitute negative 3 in place of x. So we say f of negative 3, replacing negative 3 with x, equals negative 2, again replacing negative 3 with x, substitution. So f of negative 3 equals negative 2 times negative 3 is a positive 6, minus 4 is 2. We say f of negative 3 pairs with 2. When x is negative 3, y is 2. Again, this function notation is an analog to our ordered pair. To say f of negative 3 is 2 is the same as saying when x is negative 3, y is 2. Alright. So we can see that we need 2 in our range. That eliminates C and D. It's going to be one of these. Again, x is increasing. Since it's a negative slope, our f of x should be decreasing. Both of these have a decreasing value from 2, so let's look at one more. I'm going to take negative 2 and substitute it using my head. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. Negative 2 will pair with 0. So 10 will be A. All right. One last one in this video, and then there will be a second video for the second half of these problems. Number 11 says, what is the slope? Well, we know that slope, and we use the variable m to stand for slope, is change in y over change in x. The change in y is a couple of y values subtracted. Change in x, a couple of x values subtracted, corresponding. All right. I'm going to use the formula and show the bottom 2 points. Why the bottom 2? Well, they don't involve negatives, so perhaps that's a little easier to use. So, subtract some y's. I will do 18 minus 3. 18 minus 3 in the numerator. Subtract some x's. Since I did 18 minus 3, I should do 4 minus 1. 4 minus 1. 18 minus 3 is 15. 4 minus 1 is 3. We have 15 divided by 3. That is 5. The slope in this case is 5. It's a positive. Positive means as x increases, so does y. Looking at the table, we can perform this calculation just as easily. I'm going to observe the change in x and the change in y. So from 3 to 18, what's the change? Well, 18 minus 3 is a positive 15. I'm emphasizing the positives because the signs are extremely important in this case. From 1 to 4, what's the change? Well, it's a positive 3. Slope is change in y divided by change in x. So 15 divided by 3, just like we saw here, is 5. And we can also note that this change will be the same, provided these are in a straight line, it'll be the same in these top two as well. From negative 4 to 1, well, using your calculator, 1 minus negative 4. 1 minus negative 4. The change there is 5. So from negative 4 to 1 is a positive 5. Well, the change from negative 22 to 3, 3 minus negative 22, using your calculator, will be a plus 25. Now examining these two changes, change in y, 25, positive, change in x, 5. 25 divided by 5 is also 5. So we see the slope between any two pair of points on a straight line will be equal to each other. So we need 2 points, but it doesn't matter which two we take, provided we're dealing with a straight line. The remainder of this packet will be worked on a second video.